Peace everyone, Unmask Art here, and welcome to this week's live tutorial. This week I'm doing something a little bit different, which I will explain why in just a moment. But instead of just streaming over on Patreon, this is a tutorial that we started a week and a half ago, and I decided to open this part 2 of this Rosella bird up on my regular YouTube channel for everyone. That way we could just hang out, do a little bit of drawing. You guys could ask me some questions and whatnot, and I will just continue working through this tutorial of this bird. The reason I decided to open it up for everybody is, one, I haven't streamed over on just YouTube Drawing Journal much in the past week, and the other reason is that I've been delaying this part of the tutorial on Patreon, and the reason I've been doing that is because I've been working on my colored pencil portrait course, and I had a little bit of a hiccup last week when I started recording the course. I recorded the course actually twice, so I essentially created the course 2 times. The first time that I did it, I had some severe audio issues that I did not catch were occurring through the recording process. And so when I finished the actual project, which took about 11 hours, and I brought all the footage into my program to start editing it and getting everything set up, I obviously heard the audio and it was completely unusable. There was nothing that I could do. Of course, I could have gone through the 5 hours of video footage and narrated the course. However, I thought that would be the worst scenario to do, because all of my instruction while recording was in real time, which made it a lot more easier and would save me that trouble of narrating 5 hours worth of video. So instead, I figured out what the audio issue was, and I re-recorded the entire course over the span of 2 days, being very vigilant on my audio problems or potential audio problems, and finished recording the course on Thursday. I have a lot of the primary editing done, and unfortunately, with the long delay between re-recording the course, I'm not able to get it complete before I leave for America. So for those of you that don't know, tomorrow I'm leaving Poland, going back to America to see my family and just spend a couple weeks with them. And that's why I decided to open up today's tutorial live for everybody. So you don't have to be a Patreon supporter to enjoy today's live tutorial. However, if you want to get the reference photo for this particular drawing and also have access to part 1, you would have to go over to my Patreon page, and you would be able to get that reference photo and everything, along with access to hundreds of other hours of tutorials. But anyways, let's go ahead. Let me see who's all in chat. Oh, hello, Diana, Jamie, Zainab, Moonslayer. I think that's the first time I've seen you. Blossom, Jeff, Miriam, Kelly, Wicked Illusion. Please don't change. You are doing a great job. I've learned so much in a short time I've been with you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Blossom. Yeah, no, I'm not changing or doing anything differently. It's just that since I've kind of been offline all last week working on the course, I wanted to do something the day before I go off to America. Yeah, nothing. Did I imply that anything was changing? I'm sorry if I did. No, nothing is changing. It's just that I'm just going to America to see my family for a bit. Anyways, getting into this tutorial so that I can complete it before leaving. The first color I'm using is the Luminance 061, and I'm going to do the red feathers on the head of the bird, and I'm just going to do a base color of this with this orange red and get it nice and vibrant and cover everything. And then I'll add all the texture and subtle changes and lighting with the subsequent layers afterwards. But I want to just get this nice bright red base color down. And I think what I'm going to do is, instead of burnishing, I'm going to treat the feathers here just like fur, because the feathers in this part of the bird are essentially just like fur. Really, it's only these feathers down here that turn into something different. So I'm just going to do a light layer, and then I'm going to blend out with solvent to get the paper covered. Oh, hello, Shiny, who also is awake today. Yeah, I woke up fairly late this morning as well, a bit exhausted. My wife and I last night, we finished Dan Brown's Angel and Demons book. We've been reading through all his books. We finished the first two earlier this month, and we finished reading Angel and Demons not too late last night, maybe around 2100. And she's like, so now what are we gonna do? And I was like, why do I always have to figure this out? You know, I'm always the one who have to think up something else to do. And we didn't want to, it was too late to start reading the Da Vinci Code. So I was like, hey, why don't I just let's just watch the Angel and Demons movie. And so that's what we ended up doing. And we both liked the book. However, it dragged on at the end. Like it just went a little bit beyond what we both felt was necessary. It kind of got to the climax, and then it just dragged on a little bit too long, like 5 chapters too long, and it got a little weird. But it was still a good book. It was fun to read, and I'd never read them before, so it was a fun experience. And then, of course, we watched the movie, and the movie was so terrible. It was one of the worst interpretations of a movie that I've seen. And I don't know how many of you guys have read books in preparation for a movie. I've never watched the Da Vinci Code, or no, I did see the Da Vinci Code, but I never did see Angels and Demons. And so, the last time, well, no, I did, I read the Harry Potter books before I watched the movies as well. And I've read Memoirs of a Geisha before watching that movie, that atrocious movie. And so I am of the general consensus that books are always better than movies. The interpretation is always really poor, because there's so much information that you can put in books and make them still exciting, and it's hard to jam pack all that information into the movie. But they changed so much, so drastically from the book to the movie interpretation that it wasn't even the same story. It was just a worse, watered down interpretation of the book that really doesn't do the complexity of the story any good. I don't want to ruin the book, because to be honest with you, the movie doesn't ruin the book, and I wonder if that's why they changed the movie the way that they did. Either way, it was a terrible interpretation of the book. There's one exception to the book better than movie. I'm not aware of one, so you'll have to let me know which one you're talking about, Jamie. I'm going to grab my solvent now, and I'm using a slightly smaller brush than I usually use because this drawing is quite small. Oh, hello, Donnie. And I'm just going to blend out this orange red here, just to cover up all the paper. The Notebook movie was fantastic. The book was not nearly as good. Okay, well, I had never read that book, so I can't attest to that. I have seen the movie. Down here at the bottom, I'm going to let this red kind of bleed a little bit past where I colored in, just to get that feathery look. I'm using the point of the brush to kind of push the color down into the rest of the feathers there. That will give it that choppy texture at the edge, make it look a little bit softer. Yeah, speaking of movies and books, when I read the Harry Potter series before watching the movies, I enjoyed the books. I mean, I didn't love them. They were fun stories, but the movies were okay. But there was just some weird things that drove me nuts. In particular, how ugly the house elves were. Because in the book, when you're reading it, you don't imagine the house elves looking so atrociously ugly. So that was one thing that kind of bothered me quite a bit. The magic also, the fighting magic seemed really awkward in the movies sometimes. It just didn't make much sense, but it was still rather tolerable, I suppose. Alright, the next color that I'm going to use is 093, and this is the color of the skin where the feathers go around the eye. So I'm going to do this around the eye here and just color this part of the skin in. I'm not involving any of the texture just yet because I want to darken up the eye a bit. And I am going to add this to the top part of the beak here. And just color that in. Because for the most part it is this color. And these details here are rather small, and I'm going to work this color around the mouth also. So there's not a huge amount of space here to get into the intricacies of the mouth. So for the most part, I'm just going to keep it rather simple, and then fill in some of the darker colors to create that texture. And I'm going to do the same thing with the lower part of the beak. Oh, Shiny, you saw a Rosella today. That's cool. I don't think I've ever seen one of these birds before. I never heard of them until it was requested, or it was suggested that I color a Rosella for a tutorial. It's always nice having students and fans in different parts of the world. They can suggest animals I'd never seen or heard of. Alright, let's get rid of some of that excess dust. I'm going to add some of this 093 into the edges of the feathers here. Just a little bit. That's going to help with the transition between the eye and the feathers. Alright, let's see here. I'm going to go back to the 061 color and just do another light layer to cover up everything and get that orange red really nice and bold. Probably not going to need too much though, because for the most part it's already very well colored. Oh, hello, Chrissy. Alright, I'm going to grab black, and I probably should have sharpened it, but oh well. I'm going to just come into the eye and darken the eye up a little bit. That way it's really, really dark. No room for any highlight or white paper showing through. There we go. And you're probably wondering, wouldn't that make the eye rather plain? So I agree. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white pencil and my knife here and just scrape off a little piece of pencil. It's teeny tiny. If I can get it somewhere there. I swear it fell on the paper. I'm going to have to take off another bit of pencil. Try to drop it right on the eye. There, I got one. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but I have a nice little white speck right in the middle of the eye. And with the Luminance pencils, they have this rounded back, which is really nice to just press that right into the eye. There. Now I have a nice little highlight, and it took essentially no real effort. Alright, let's see here. I'm going to take another darker color here. This is the 069. I'm going to use this to build some of the shapes and contours of these red feathers by adding in some darker reds. And even though the drawing is rather small, I'm going to make sure that my pencil strokes make sense in regards to the overall texture of the feathers. Fortunately, the reference photo for this is very high quality and close up, so you can get in there and zoom in as much as you want if you were drawing this bird larger than what I am drawing it. I'm drawing it small for the sake of it not taking a month long of tutorial time. And for the pattern of the feathers right here, you'll notice that they kind of have this billowing effect. And if you color them like scales of a snake or a fish, you'll get that billowing effect of the feathers. So that's just a little pattern recognition when it comes to these kind of feathers that are short and on the heads of most birds, because they look like fur, but they're just really short feathers, and they create this kind of billowing pattern like a cloud, and they have a scaly type texture. Oh, hello, Barbara. Oh, thank you, Shiny. Yeah, I was kind of jumping between a few choices of red for the head instead of going with like a pure 070. I went for a more orange tone with the red. So this one, what is this? This is permanent red. It's called permanent red, but it actually has a lot of yellow in it. And I just thought that it looked nice. So I decided to go with the more orange, more orange looking red than just kind of a crimson. All right, let's see. I'm gonna grab a little bit of the 495, and this is just a cool gray color, and I'm going to use it to darken up some of these areas around the eyes and the beak, and I'm going to blend out with solvent to smooth some of the texture before going back over top of it with more color. Add some of that around the eye and a little bit in the feathers just to darken them up. We haven't added any highlights to the feathers yet, so they still look rather two-dimensional, but that will change with time, especially once we add the highlights. Just take a little bit of solvent on my brush and tap those colors down. Get it nice and blended. I'm going to work the color around the eye as well to smooth that out. When you're doing layers with colored pencils and solvent, what does it mean if once it dries it looks like tiny cracks have formed on the surface? If texture, so that sounds like it might be a paper problem if you're getting like tiny cracks, because the solvent in no way should dry it out so much that like the pigment of the colored pencils begins cracking. If anything, all it does is pull out a little bit of saturation. So I'm not sure. What solvent are you using? Fabriano paper shouldn't have any particular texture that causes those types of cracks or anything. I have never used the Fabriano paper, but I know a lot of people that do use it and quite enjoy it. So yeah, I don't know why that would happen with that paper. All right, the next color that I'm going to use is 832, and I'm going to use it to bring out just a bit of highlights in the feathers here. And I'll probably even grab some white for the brighter parts of the feathers. And I'm just going to do little, I guess, partial C's. That's kind of the shape that I'm quickly making. They're not dots, they're like little tiny broken C's. The letter. Just to give that curved shape of the feathers. It's very subtle. I mean, like I said, you can see how tiny this bird's head is in comparison to my finger, so these kind of details don't really show up too drastically. Even in person, you kind of have to get nice and close. But it's worth doing. It's worth doing because those tiny textures, you know, they make a difference in the end. So when you put everything together, the larger picture, it makes sense. Now I'm going to do the same thing with white and just bring out some more of these highlights in the bird. Not going to do too much with the white because I don't want to, I just want to add a few shiny parts of the feathers. Because if you do too much with the white, what will end up happening is you're going to change the color of red. So I'm not going to do too much there. But I do feel like I want another color of red. So I'm going to grab a brighter red. Let's see here. Yeah, I like the 070 red. It's a little bit deeper. I'm going to use this in the shadows a little bit. So this is the Luminance 070. I just feel like the grayish color for the shadows kind of dulled out the color a bit, and I really want the head of this bird to look nice and vibrant. So I'm going to cover up those texture marks that I used the 069 when I created those texture with the 069. Even though 069 is a deep brown red color, it just wasn't vibrant enough. So I want to bring back some color to my bird here. Yeah, I think that works. That looks better. Now I have a bit more red overall in the bird. It brings out the highlights a bit more as well. Alright, now I'm going to grab that 093 again. Color. Wait, is this the color I want? No, I'm going to change my mind. The 495 gray, and I'm going to darken in these areas inside the mouth so that I can color the tongue and some of these details of the beak before moving on. Because I want to smooth out the beak next. And now 093 to color in the skin and the tongue here. Finish up around the eye as well. I'm going to grab my black if I can find it. There it is. And this one definitely needs to be sharpened. So give me a moment. I'm going to just add a little bit of texture around the eye, because there's some wrinkles here that I want to add, and I'll darken up a few of the detail up in here and by the mouth, just to maximize my value differences. Alright, now what I want, here we go, this is the color. This is 842, and I'm going to use this for the base layer of the beak. So I'm going to start with the top. I'm going to treat the beak top and bottom separately so that I can get the colors nice and sharp and all the edges nice and sharp on the bottom beak first, and then I'll work on the top beak first, and then I'll work on the bottom part. I apologize. I was focusing on the drawing here, and I forgot that you guys are chatting. So, oh, hello, Lady Marigold. got Luminance Pencils, so now it's easier to follow along, but I spilled my solvent on the drawing and have to wait for it to dry. Oh no. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, be careful with the solvent. It can sometimes, even after it dries, it can leave like a stain on the paper. If it catches any pigment, it will just run out and kind of like change the color of the paper, especially if the solvent was not perfectly clean. I was thinking if you had hard pencils first, then added the tacky wax ones after, that might be why. Oh, okay, you're referring to why the pencil might crack if you use solvent. Oh, hello, Elise. And DJ. Alright, I'm going to grab my brush again, and I'm going to smooth out that beak so that the texture is nice and smooth. Make sure it's clean. I'm going to use just a tiny bit of solvent. Be careful around the edges so you don't feather it out. You don't want it to go past. You don't want it to feather out past your line art. And it looks like I have a piece of dust stuck there, or maybe it's graphite, I can't quite tell, so I'm going to use my kneaded eraser to see if I can get that piece of dust. It's like right underneath the tip of the front beak. Driving me nuts. Okay, I think that's good enough. Now I'm going to add a little bit of the 093 to this back part of the beak. Just a light layer of it. Start shaping the contour. And what other color should I use? I'm seeing quite a bit of this 025. Yes, 025 right around the edge. It's kind of a yellowish color. So I'm going to use this right on the edge to darken the tip of the beak. There we go. And I'm going to grab my white that for some reason constantly has a dirty tip on it. Make sure when you're using your white, a lot like when you're blending with solvent, you want to make sure the tip of your pencil is clean, just like your brush is clean when you're using it. And I'm going to add a little bit of shine, some highlight right there, and right here as well. And then back here. And I do actually need a little bit of bright blue there. I think I am missing one of my blue pencils. Oh no, it's right here. There it is. Yeah. So this is 661. I'm going to add a little bit of blue into the beak because you want it to reflect the sky above it. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of blue here on the top of the beak. Yeah, there is quite a number of Aussies in the chat today, Chrissy, for sure. Always a pleasure to have you all here. I gotta make a trip to Australia. Anybody want to host? I gotta go to Australia once in my life, at least. Multiple times in my life, actually. Once I can assure you won't be enough. Not for me. I'd love to come down. I've passed Aussie when I was in the Navy, but unfortunately we did not stop there, despite more than half of the ship basically begging our captain to pull into Australia. But we couldn't get it. We had to get to the Middle East. Alright, I'm going to darken the edge here of this bottom beak. Absolutely, you're always welcome. All right, Chrissy, I'm going to hold you to that. It would be cool to come down, have a nice live stream on your channel together, hang out. That would be a lot of fun. I'd love to see your work in person as well, in your workspace, and we could create something together. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I'd love to do that. Alright, let's see. I'm going to add a little bit of 832 to this bottom beak. Bring in some of the kind of peachy tones that occur. And then that yellow that we used, that 025, I'm going to use this in some of the transition. Very, very little of it. And for the bottom, instead of using solvent, I'm going to actually use a colorless blender. If you've never used the Luminance colorless blender, you're missing out on something cool. I love the colorless blender. I'm going to use it on the top as well to do the final smoothing. Make sure everything's nice and smooth and give that beak that beak-like texture. And I'm going to grab white, again making sure it's clean, and get the edge of the mouth, highlight that right in there. It's a lot of work for just a tiny little beak, but it's necessary to get it to look realistic. Oh, hello Camilla and Stephanie and Chris. The Prismacolorless blender, I would say, is no good. I tried the Prismacolorless blender, and when I then tried the Luminance colorless blender, I realized what makes a good colorless blender, and Prismacolor has it wrong. Their colorless blender is super rigid and hard, whereas this colorless blender is like you could just crawl up next to it. It's so soft. It's so nice to blend the colors, and it's so much more smooth, and it doesn't tear away the color like the Prismacolor one. Alright, what else do we need to do here? Yes, to get these feathers underneath, colored underneath the head, and we'll be finished with the head of this bird. What color do I need here? I'm going to start off with a little bit of 093. Oh my gosh, this bug is driving me nuts. There's a tiny little bug flying around me, and I just, oh my gosh, it is driving me absolutely crazy. I don't know if you guys have caught it on camera. It's come through here a few times, but oh my goodness, it is driving me absolutely crazy right now. Anyways, I'm using a little bit of 093 to do some of the shading and the transition between the red feathers and these more whitish peach feathers. I'm going to use that 093 to do that transition up at the top, at least. Let's see. Can I frame the artwork you sent me without it getting ruined? I want to display it, but I'm scared I'll smudge bits. Oh yes, Stephanie. So you can frame it, but make sure that you frame it behind glass and not plastic. If you frame it behind like plexiglass, the static electricity will pull the pigment off of the painting. So yeah, just make sure whatever you frame it behind glass. And thank you for sending me a picture. I was so happy that you got the pastel painting on your birthday. Do I need portrait experience to take the portrait class? I'm an absolute beginner in portraits. Camilla, absolutely not. See, that is the whole purpose of the portrait course that I'm going to be releasing next month, is that I designed this course in a way that you don't even need drawing experience. You need to be able to trace. That's about all you need to be able to do. If you can trace the line art, then you can draw this portrait. I made it that easy. Like, it should be one of the easiest drawings that you do. I finally do have a time for the portrait. It's 5 hours long. So that is how long the portrait course is. It's 5 hours, like just a little bit over 5 hours. And it will be, I think I'm confident enough to say that it is by far going to be the most comprehensive color pencil portrait course that is in existence. Like, the level of precision that I went through to make the course is probably untouched by any other portrait course. I realize that it takes you only through one portrait, but I'm a firm believer that experience is the best teacher. And so even though I don't teach you how to draw an eye in general, and then go through a bunch of different series of eyes, and then go through a bunch of different types of hair, and then go through a bunch of different types of skin, I take you through one portrait from beginning to end. And I think that from all the skills that you learn approaching just that one portrait, you can start applying that to your other drawings. Because honestly, I think the hardest part about coloring portraits with colored pencils is just having a strategy. And in the course, I take you through the what I can conceive to be the most easy and simplistic strategy possible. You don't have to think about what color to use. You don't have to think about when to use it, or you don't have to think about why you're using a color. I narrowed down, if I'm not mistaken, coloring that portrait using 25 colors. So for the entire portrait from beginning to end, you only use 25 colors. And I think at any given time, you only use at most 13 colors in a portion, one portion. I think the first part. So let me just go through and explain how the course is going to be laid out. So I have the line art and the reference photo, obviously, that's going to be in the course, and you're meant to trace the line art. I made the line art exactly what you would need, where you don't need to be able to draw anything, but not so detailed that it takes forever to trace it or whatever, or make it that difficult to draw it if you wanted to do that. But very, very straightforward line art and very straightforward portrait pose. And the entire portrait is broken up into 11 separate videos. The very first video, I think, is about 8 minutes long, and it's only coloring the whites of the eyes, or the scleras. That's it. Not even the iris or the pupil or anything. It's literally coloring the whites of the eyes, and you use 3 colors to do it. And then the very next section is, as you may have guessed, the pupils and the irises. and nothing else. And it's like another 8-minute video. And you use 3 colors. Again, I think 3 colors. It might be 4. Can't quite remember that much detail of it. But and then that's the end of that. That's going to be the end of that part of the portrait. And then the third video is coloring just the skin around the eyes, doing the makeup that's part of the portrait, and then doing the eyelashes. So that might be like 6 colors or 7 colors or something like that. But that's the end of that part. And then the next part is the forehead and eyebrows. And that might be like 10 colors or something. But each part is broken up, super clear cut. And I explain why I break it up a little bit, but essentially it's just so that you can work in parts and not really feel overwhelmed with having to follow like a 2-hour long part. The first couple parts are like 8 minutes. I think the eye makeup might be 20 minutes. The forehead, I think maybe like 40 minutes. So it makes it that much more digestible to follow the entirety of the course. So I just, that's the approach that I took when kind of working out the process of going through the actual course. The longest part is an hour and 20 minutes or so, and that's just because the neck and shoulders of the portrait take longer to fill in with color. Not necessarily because it's harder to do anything, it's just that it's a larger space to fill in with the pencils. So that part of the course will take a little bit of extra time. But I think I do the hair in 20 minutes, 25 minutes maybe, and I lay out a very clear strategy for doing the hair that you could use across any number of portraits. I almost missed your question, Camilla. So the pencils that I'm using in the portrait course is Prismacolor. And when I was starting the planning process of the portrait course, I started with Luminance, and I was like, why would I switch pencils? Why would I do that? This course should follow directly from anybody that went out and got Prismacolors for the Intro to Color Pencil course. And I thought, it would be kind of nice to have a portrait course for the Luminance pencils, but they are more expensive, and I don't think that would be fair to all the people that listened to my suggestion of getting Prismacolors. So I did the course using Prismacolors, and I do not have a color conversion version of the of Prismacolor to Luminance for the course. So I don't mention any other pencils. And even if you don't have Prismacolors, or you only have like polychromos or something, the other thing that I took into consideration with the course was making it budget friendly, because I define like budget artist. Ever since the beginning, I was using like the cheapest supplies that I could, and then only as I slowly became more professional did I start upgrading my supplies. And that's what I want to do with my courses. I want to make them available to the widest potential audience. So when I worked on the planning process of the course, I narrowed down the exact pencils that you need. So now with this course, I don't even expect people to buy the full set of the Prismacolors. I recommend it, and I will always recommend the full set of Prismacolors over any set of pencils. I say, if you're going to get into colored pencils, get the full set of Prismacolors. You'll be so much more happier if you do that. But with this course, I'm going to give you the exact list of 25 pencils that you can open lot buy of Prismacolors. So essentially, you can buy the exact 25 pencils and you don't need anything else to do the course, which just makes it that much more budget friendly. And then, of course, the paper that you use, I will recommend. The paper that I use in the course is the Bristol Smooth paper, the Strathmore Bristol Smooth. And I know a lot of people don't like that paper, but I decided to expand upon the paper choices that I gave in the Intro to Color Pencil course, which was the paper I'm using right now, which is the Stonehenge Vellum paper. So I wanted to also pull people out of their comfort zone if they've never experienced working with smoother papers. So that's also something I took into account when I was figuring out the course. All right, I'm going to jump back into this tutorial just a little bit and mention that I think I'm done with the head area. I think it looks quite good, but I'm going to work on these feathers now, and I'm going to start with 820, this yellow, bright yellow color, and I'm going to fill in all these yellow parts. Husband found me an adjustable height angle draft table for $50 at the market. It goes to 5'6" high. It's in our living room. So good. Oh, that's cool. I'm kind of jealous. I didn't take into account how long I stand in a day, since I converted my desk to a standing desk and I don't have the option of raising and lowering it. And I'm probably going to have to look into a desk that I can raise and lower, so that when I do like the live streams and things, I want to be standing. And when I'm recording like a time lapse or something like that, I also want to be standing. But when I'm editing video, I do not want to be standing. Because that process is just, it can be really, really tedious sometimes, and it's not all that enjoyable to stand. And I don't do so much editing for so long that if I were to sit during that time, it would be like detrimental to my health. So I think I need to just reevaluate a tiny bit and perhaps look into upgrading my desk in the future to something that I can go from sitting to standing a little bit more easier than moving the platform, or I just build another platform to sit my chair on. I don't know. That would maybe work. All right. So with these feathers here, I have to try to dodge this black pencil that I laid down previously in part 1 of this tutorial, because I can easily pull the black into this yellow if I go over top of it. So I have to dodge that black as well as I can. So I'm trying to do that, because otherwise it's going to really, really dull out this yellow. And when I started today, or when I was preparing, I was thinking that maybe it wasn't the best idea to lay down the black first, because I kind of ignored the fact that it's very smearable as I go over top of it with this brighter color. But I think it will be okay. I think I'll be able to manage. Just a high chair. Yeah, that's what I need to find. I was actually thinking like a stool, like a nice, rather small stool. What is this bug now? Get out of here, bug. Jesus, leave me alone. This bug is torturing me, you guys. I almost never have or see bugs in my flat. And so when one bug finds its way in here somehow, it has to just hover around me and in my face and on my things and just bother me to death. Yeah, like a bar stool, but not so flat and uncomfortable. A little bit more comfortable than a bar stool. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking I might look for. I have one stool here, but it's for this desk when it's already sitting on the ground. If there was some way to like extend the legs, but it's a really cheap stool. Hello, Steve. I didn't see you come in. I'm glad that you have recognized the difference that good paper choice makes. So the full name of this paper that I'm using is Stonehenge Vellum. And hold on a second. Here's the exact paper. So you can see 250 GSM or 90 pounds. Stonehenge, where's the name? Why is this vellum? I know it says vellum somewhere, right? Yeah, this is the paper though, and it's vellum. Am I missing it on the front page? I don't know. It doesn't say it on the back. But this is vellum paper. I promise you it is. It just doesn't say it on the front. But this is what the cover looks like. And when you shop for it online or whatever, it will say vellum. I didn't realize that it doesn't say it on the front though. That's weird. Okay, so that's super weird. So this is the same paper, but here, vellum, 250 GSM. Yeah. That has a different cover, which is super weird, and it doesn't say vellum anywhere on it, but it's the same paper. All right, let's continue coloring in these feathers, shall we? Oh, hello, Cece. Jaguar? If Stonehenge is the same texture as Strathmore, then I would switch. As far as like Strathmore vellum paper, I don't know. I've never used Strathmore vellum paper. Only the Bristol paper. Bristol Smooth and Bristol Plate. And then I've used the Strathmore toned paper. But I've went through a lot of different variations of paper since starting colored pencils, and once I found the papers that I liked, I just stopped looking or stopped trying other papers. I've tried watercolor paper, tried Archie's, I've tried illustration paper, I've tried drafting paper or drafting film, which I despise. I've tried a bunch of different papers and stuck with the Stonehenge Vellum and Strathmore Bristol Plate and Bristol Smooth. The Bristol Plate and the Bristol Smooth are very, very similar, except the plate is a 500 series and more expensive and higher, just slightly higher quality. Is Strathmore Bristol Vellum 100 pound just as good? Yeah, I can't say for sure. Does practice improve your art? Not generally. Not generally. Practice, because you have to be practicing correctly in order to get the most out of the practice that you are doing. So if you're not practicing correctly, then you're not going to get much out of it. So you have to practice correctly. And if you're wondering, well, how do you practice correctly? What's the difference between practicing correctly and practicing not correctly? And the simple answer to that is what you're doing scary? Is it challenging in a scary way? If the answer to that is no, then you're practicing wrong. The way that I progressed through my color pencil work the fastest was to do things I had never done and had no idea how to do. And even though some of the subjects I wasn't thrilled about trying, they presented a unique challenge, whether it was in color or texture or style or whatever it was. I just threw everything that I had at it and learned from the mistakes, figured out what my limitations were, and then used that experience to approach my next challenging piece differently. Whether it involved reevaluating my planning process, my color choices, or anything really. The only way that you can really improve is if you are doing something that you don't know how to do, because you'll learn a lot more that way. You'll progress a lot faster. If you're always drawing and coloring what you're comfortable doing, then you'll progress a lot slower than somebody that's just jumping around all over the place, challenging themselves from every direction, and just jumping in wholeheartedly feet first and messing up. Just mess up. Just keep messing up. That's the best way to practice. If you're not messing up, then you're not practicing and you're not going to get better. I mess up nearly everything that I touch. I am constantly drawing things that I've never drawn before, creating things I've never created before. And somehow I convince you guys that I'm good enough to do this, but I can assure you that it's all practice to me. I'm still practicing every day. Every time I'm doing a tutorial, it's just practice for me. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just pretend really, really well. I think for me, it's more of a point of interest in keeping things interesting, because I get bored really, really easily with repetition. And so when I'm constantly creating something different, whether it's a landscape or some animal I've never heard of, then I get much more enjoyment out of the process of creating when I'm doing something that I feel totally lost at doing. Sometimes it can be scary, and I've mentioned this a few times on live streams, where, you know, I tell you, like, what I just said. You know, a lot of times I've never drawn these things that you guys ask me to draw, and at the same time, even though it's the first time that I drew this Rosella bird, I'm doing a tutorial. I'm doing a tutorial on my approach of the first time I've ever drawn this bird. I didn't draw it 15 times off screen to figure out the strategy I was going to use. I just used my experience from past projects to approach the textures and color that I see in this bird, and then I tell you why I'm doing it. And even though I have no idea if this is going to turn out well, I assume that it will turn out well enough to convince you guys that I know what I'm doing. So that's how I do it. It keeps me humble. I'll tell you that for sure. I don't pretend to be the greatest artist in the world. In fact, I probably undersell my abilities quite often, more often than not anyway. So I just speak my strategy and just talk through my strategy and my thought process for approaching subjects I've never done. I mean, if you want to hear something interesting, I'm sure many of you probably already know or is aware of this, but I started pastels last year. Like, it's been 14 months? 14 months since I started playing with pastels. 3 months after I first ever touched a soft pastel, I created a introduction to pastel course. That is how quickly I went from I've never touched this medium in my life before to creating a course that I now sell on my website. And people love the course and they still buy it. But how could I possibly justify in a reasonable way that I know what I'm doing when I had only touched the pastels for 3 months or less, even when I actually recorded. So I just created techniques and then talked about my process, and that's what I did for that pastel course. I've actually talked about this in one of my earlier drawing journals, where I just tell you guys that the truth. I just tell you guys the truth, and the truth is that I have no idea what I'm doing. That I just make this stuff up. and I think that you guys can too. I think that you can look at something that you really want to color or paint or draw, and you just make it up. You just make the strategy up. You look at what is in front of you, and you just try to recreate it based up on your best guess as to how you would be able to create that texture or create that look. And you just run with it, assuming that it will work out in the end. Because that's what I do with all of my tutorials. When you guys ask me to do things I've never done before, which is all the time. You guys always want tutorials of things that I've never done, which I love because I benefit from it so much. Which is why I always say that I probably learn more from my tutorials than you guys learn, because I'm just making stuff up. I love it. It's the best. All right, let's see here. That those yellows, not quite as warm as I'd like them to be. And Luminance does have a warmer yellow, so I'm gonna snatch it up. I'm gonna take this really, really warm yellow. No wait, that's not the right one. It is 240. Yeah, Luminance 240. This is like the most neon yellow that Luminance has. I posted a bunch of my recent art on Facebook. People wanted to buy a sketch I did, and I actually made me uneasy. How weird is that? I can relate. Some people, I always say that the work that people enjoy the most that I create is the work that I least like. It happens like all the time. Like the work that I really put in a lot of effort and like a lot of myself into the creation, like my original pieces, those are the ones that they're like my least viewed videos on my YouTube channel, like the least liked photo on my Instagram or whatever, or the least commented photo in shared groups. And it's so funny because then I'll do something that I am even hesitant to even share because I just find it really poorly done and it just looks bad and I don't like it. And then people respond so positively to it. It's like, what are you looking at? Are we seeing the same thing here? Like, it happens to me all the time. And it just reinforces that saying that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, because you can create something that you just find absolutely hideous but the world loves, and it doesn't make even a tiny bit of sense to you, but just enjoy what you create and let people respond the way that they respond to it. That's what I've kind of grown to learn with my work, is that even though there's some things that I really despise about a few of the pieces I've created, and I feel almost ashamed to put or to attach my name to the work, I just have to remind myself that people find the beauty in whatever they want. And if they find it in something that I don't necessarily like that I created, that's fine. I'll let them appreciate that, and I don't have a problem having my name attached to it. And I try to just remind myself that like that's the purpose that's what I like about creating. Making the world more beautiful for other people, and I enjoyed knowing that when somebody comes across something that, even though if I don't like it, if they like it, then I've accomplished what I want to do. So I just leave it at that. I can't post my art. I'm assuming, DJ, you're referring to the Unmask family Facebook group. It goes away. So if you're not already a member of the Unmask Art family Facebook group, I have the link in the description. I think I have the link in the description. I'm pretty sure I do. But there's some rules to the group, because there's plenty of groups on Facebook to share your artwork. your finished artwork and all that, and kind of get your name out there in front of people. But for the Unmask family page, I set up the group for learning purposes. So if you go through the rules, you'll find that sharing finished artwork is not acceptable because there's already enough places on Facebook for that. And instead, what I encourage in the group is to share a work in progress that you might be struggling on and you want some input on how to approach something, or if it's looking correct as it is. And then as you continue to work on that piece, I want you to then post the updates on your original post in the comments, because anybody that's already following your post will get notified. And then you can have the conversation on the original post. So this tones down the spam-like feel of the group, because if you post a work in progress and there's 5 people that are interested and they like it and they comment and give you input, they will be notified when you update on that post by posting an updated work in progress or even the finished piece, and then you can get feedback from the people that are interested in the post. So that's the way the group is set up, and I have my moderators. My moderators have full autonomy to delete posts. I tell them, if you think that if you feel that it's spammy, if you feel that they're not following the rules, then you have my permission to delete it without any recourse. So that's the way that the group is set up, and I don't say that to discourage anybody from joining the group. I say it particularly because I want the group to be about learning and not sharing finished work for the sake of likes, which is in the rules. It's more about just getting encouraged and helping people progress with art in general. So that's probably why some people have posted and perhaps didn't understand why it got deleted or something. About 3 years ago, when I started with, I put on my Facebook, I'll share the good and bad in my journey of learning art. For the most part, they like what I think. Are they crazy? I am not sure. I'm not sure if I understand what you were referring to. I might have gotten a little lost in the conversation. All right, I think I'm pretty close to being done with these yellow feathers. I think I'm going to take a little bit of white and just see if I can brighten up some of these spots to create a bit of highlight on this one side here, mainly this side. There we go. And I'm going to take a tiny bit of green and add just a hint of green in some of these feathers as it shows up a little bit. Not too much green, but a little bit of it. Have a bit of diversity in the colors. Oh, you know what? I totally forgot about the yellow right here. Yeah, there's definitely yellow here. This is the 820 color, by the way. And I'm going to taper it down and switch to the 240 super bright yellow, because right in this spot here is where it transitions to like this light aqua blue. And I'm going to switch to that green, that 015. and then add in that green there. Okay, let's switch now to this this light green aqua color, which is 182, and I'm gonna fill in all these feathers here on the back, and I'm gonna do this super lightly because this color is really light, and so I'm going to mix it with white, and I'm gonna just kind of alternate the layers here with this color and white so that I can get the right value of this really light aqua. And I'm going to use solvent to blend out to make that smooth. And then I'll just use some darker shades to create the texture here. Alright, where's my white? Alright, now I'm just going to add a little bit of white right over top of it. I think I might go alternate this 2 times and then blend out with solvent just to make sure I have enough pigment on the paper, because otherwise it will just be spotty when I blend it out. Got to make sure that there's enough pigment. And then go back to the 182, do another layer. I'm going to go this way, kind of cross hatch, so that I fill in more space of the paper. Jumping back to the white now, doing the same thing. There, that should give me that nice aqua color when I blend out, hopefully. Gotta make sure I clean my brush. So I just test it on a piece of tissue. Saying what I don't like with what I did in art, but share it anyway on Facebook because friends follow my journey of learning and what I like the least, they like the most, it seems. Yep. Yeah, I know that feeling. That definitely happens. You just never know what people like to look at. People find some art just magnificently beautiful and you don't. And you are like, is there something wrong with me? What is going on? Why don't I like this? Art is no okay, here's the perfect example. Art is no different than music. I mean, my goodness, listen to some of the music that people just riot over. And when you listen to it, you're baffled. I am genuinely baffled by the music that people like today. And I just don't get it. I'm like, what? Like, what is this? And art is the same exact way. You make something and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I just make? This is atrocious on every level. And then people flock to it and they're like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. You're such a fantastic artist. And you almost feel embarrassed that they like it. It's a feeling that I will never get used to, and I don't think anybody can get used to it. But it's just the same as music. But it's like you created a song that you hate listening to, but everybody loves it. And if you go through some of those like one-hit wonders from like the 80s or whatnot, and then you meet up with them today, the songs they hate the most are the ones that made them famous. Like that, I mean, how many times have you heard of that? It happens like every single time. So, yeah, art is identical to that thing with music where you just don't understand why anybody likes it. Oh yeah, Steve. I can't imagine. The look on your face, Steve, when you listened to some of the music that I listened to. My wife doesn't like the music that I listen to, and I don't necessarily like the music that she listens to. My wife is a bit more old school with her music, and she likes a lot of things. I've gotten her to appreciate and like some of the music that I've listened to. I mean, I catch her listening to a couple of the songs from a group called Contortionist, and just like the soft stuff. But yeah, I've also caught her listening to Limp Bizkit, which makes me laugh even now. But yeah, people's choice in music baffles me. But I'm sure my choice in music baffles a number of you as well. Yeah, I agree, Chrissy. The world would be quite boring if we were all the same. Definitely agree to that. All right, I need to let that dry. And while that is drying, I think what I'm going to do here is where's that blue? Oh, okay. This is the 661 color, and I'm going to start coloring in these blue feathers here. No real strategy. I'm just going to start filling them in. I'm going to come down to these feathers here and stop and make sure I have everything laid out nicely. I'm going to keep this nice and light first off. There's some yellow coming through here and it turns to green. So I'm going to grab that yellow color, the 820, and just pencil in a bit of the yellow there. And let's see, I'm going to grab the 162 color. This is going to be the green color that happens. Shiny, you think you like the music I listen to? Just avoid music a lot because it reminds me of work, being forced to listen to music 7 hours a day. But I love hard, weird stuff. That's funny. I'm trying to think if there's anything new that I've been listening to. Music. Yeah, I've mentioned it before, but like I like metal and then I like J-pop. Like you almost can't get the most opposites. I think that might be the most opposite of all music. If you guys can come up with a better opposite than metal and J-pop, let me know. But I love Perfume, but I also love Dance Gavin Dance. So where's the blue? Oh, I'm holding it in my hand. I'm gonna go with another layer of blue here because I think I can. country and punk rock. Yeah, I could never do country. That was the one genre of music that I always felt tortured to listen to, because my dad was a DJ and he also liked country music. I'm going to now use 660 to bring in some of the darker blues. I was telling Wendy and Chrissy I received the Derwent Sharp Point manual sharpener, and wow, what a game changer. Finally, after all this time, I can sharpen that point you get. Oh, cool. I'm going to have to check out that Derwent sharpener. I like pop, punk, and death metal. Oh, thank you, Brenda. What is the difference in layers of color you need with Prismacolors versus Luminance? Also, I have some Prismacolor blenders. Can they be dipped in solvent? I'm not sure if you want to dip the blenders in solvent. I don't think that's going to be a good idea. It should just dissolve the pencil and not actually help you with blending. So the difference in layers of color with Prismacolor versus Luminance is not really all that different. Obviously, the biggest difference between the two sets is price and color selection, and also light fastness. I mean, if you want your work to be preserved for hundreds of years, if you feel that confident, then you could concern yourself with the light fastness rating, but I don't, because I don't think I'll ever be that famous. So I just go with whatever colors I like at the time. But as far as layering process, there's no difference. Alright, let's see, what am I doing here? I'm going to blend. Where's my brush? Yeah, I'm going to blend this blue, get these colors looking a bit softer here. I might need more layers, but I don't know. Forgot. You guys keep me so entertained with the conversation that I lose touch of what I'm doing here. So if anybody is trying to follow this tutorial and you're finding it difficult, I apologize for that. But I feel like I'm working slow enough for anybody to be able to do this. So hopefully that's true. There. Alright, now let's see. I'm going to use a bit of this 093 color to figure out what I need to color in here, because there's a lot going on. I have these feathers here, so I'm just using this to kind of sketch things out a bit. There. That's where all those feathers are at. And I think I'm going to use yellow. Start with yellow. This is the 820. And start with a yellow layer on the top of each feather where I drew that line. Oh, I guess it doesn't go yellow all the way down there. Then I'm going to take the 182, draw it right underneath the yellow, and my light blue, keep losing that pencil, and fill that in all the way down to the bottom. I'm kind of avoiding the dark stuff yet. Then I'm going to grab the dark blue and use that color to separate the feathers. I'm going to trace out these slightly larger feathers right in here so that I can get the picture correct. Yeah, this goes, sure, this goes here. I mean, this part is so small that it almost doesn't even matter, but I want to try to be as accurate as I can. I see you guys are enjoying the conversation about music in the chats. You guys are hilarious. All right. I'm going to take black now and try to fill in these black feathers. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me. I know you're all talking about a bunch of random stuff in the chat, but for anybody else that is maybe listening to me instead of the chat, just want to let you know that you can always ask me questions. Every time I look up, you guys are talking about some other random thing. It makes me laugh. This is what happens when I open up a Patreon live stream to the rest of YouTube. It gets weird. It's a good weird though. Oh wait, I still need that black over here. Most of this feather right on this side is actually black. And now I'm going to blend it out. because that's just going to make it easier to make it look smooth. Bring this bird. I might, CC, I might bring the bird. I don't know. I'm not, it's really small. Like, yeah, I can cover it with my hand. It's a really small drawing, so I don't know if I want to bring something this small. It might not be worth bringing. We'll see. I have to like be ready tomorrow morning and then go in to catch the bus to the airport, so I don't have a lot of time to make any lasting corrections to this piece if I do decide to bring it, but I don't know, maybe. Like I said, I'll consider it. Small drawings are beautiful. Yes, they can be sometimes. Brenda, I'm going to the United States visiting my family. Alright, now I'm going to grab this nice bright blue. This is 660. Is that what it is? Yeah, 660. If I had $100 to spend, what would I spend the most on? Would it be quantity over quality? It would always be quality at this point. I think perhaps when I was a little bit more naive of an artist, I would have probably went with quantity rather than quality, because I felt like expensive art supplies were just a sham. But the truth is they're not. However, there's exceptions. That exception being Prismacolors. You can get like the full set of Prismacolors for like $100 now, or less in most cases. And so you get kind of the best of both worlds, a bit of quality and quantity. I presume you're referring to art supplies. Is my wife going with me? Unfortunately, she is not. She has to work. And she is actually going to be able to take some time off a little bit. She's going to be traveling to Germany with her mom to see family. And so at least she's not going to be like here alone or whatnot, because she'll be off in Germany for a bit with her mom, which is nice. But yeah, for the most part, she has to work, which makes it impossible for her to take the 2 weeks off to come to America with me. Hopefully next year that won't be the case, but this year it's just not looking at all possible. Or it was not possible, I should say it that way, because I am leaving and she is not. Yeah, it will actually be the first time in like a little less than 2 years that we had to be away from each other. Because 2 years ago I went back to the United States, and I think about a 2-month separation between that time. But we're good. Like, we're good at being separated. As most of you know, we met online, so the first year and a half of our relationship, we never even met each other. So being apart is literally nothing for us. It sucks because we like to be near each other, but we handle it like champs. We have no problem handling it. It's very easy. We have excellent communication skills, so talking through chat, talking on Facebook or through Skype or whatever is just second nature to our relationship, since it was built on that foundation. I guess that's one positive thing from long distance relationships. Is that an NE2 brush you're using with solvent? Oh, I can assure you, this brush does not have a name. It is a 4. It is a number 4 round brush that I couldn't begin to tell you where it came from. I have no idea where I got this brush. The brush is probably 8 years old or something. What am I dipping my brush in? So I'm dipping it in Zest-It solvent. That's what I'm using. Brenda, yes, I am going to Ohio. All right, the next thing that I need to do is the back here, and I'm kind of wondering which color I want to use. I think I'm going to use a little bit more of the 182 to pencil in some of the details here on the feathers and just create that billowing of the feathers with like kind of partial U shapes. I'm just going to go down the back a little bit and map out where these feathers curl a bit and give it that subtle texture. What part? You're in West Virginia? Well, I'm landing in New York. My sister's picking me up in New York, and then we are making the long drive from New York to Ohio. So I don't think we'll go through West Virginia, but yeah. The part of Ohio that we live in is along a stretch of I-77, and it's kind of eastern Ohio. We're only like an hour or so away from Pennsylvania, so yeah, not that far from the border of Ohio and Pennsylvania. Alright, now I'm going to bring in a bit of gray, and to do that I'm going to use 093 to darken up some of the shadows in this part. I'm going to keep this color here rather loose because I'm going to blend it out again, and some of this texture is going to go away. There we go. I'm going to bring some of that bright yellow into the 240. I'm just going to scribble in a little bit of this yellow and then blend out. Grab my brush. What was I was blending like dark blue and black, so I definitely want to make sure my brush is nice and clean. Oh goodness, I just realized we're almost done. I just have the tail feathers after this part, and that's going to be super easy. Alright, that should be enough. I'm just going to blend this out. real sloppy. Make it soft. Get rid of all that pencil texture. But I am excited to get home, visit, and see your sister again. Yes, DJ, I am excited, despite what it sounds like my voice right now. I'm super excited to see my family. My sister and my brother both had babies that I've never met, and they're probably like walking around speaking full sentences by this point, and I never met them, and it always feels crazy because I've spent my entire adulthood life away from my family. I essentially grew up 3,000 miles away from them when I was in the Navy, and gosh, I've only visited a handful of times. So they have kids, and I have just, barely ever gotten to know them, and they're like fully grown now, so it sometimes is a bit awkward, but it's gonna be nice to go back. Alright, I gotta move this paper a bit. So I'm calling the top part of my bird done, and I need to make a little bit of space here so I can work on the tail feathers and you guys can see it. There. This is gonna be quick and easy. So the tail feathers down here, they're like green and blue, I think. Will I finish this bird today in the stream? Yeah. I just have the tail feathers to do. That's it. First color is going to be light blue. Yeah, just going to take this light blue and do a little bit on this edge here and a little bit on this edge here, going down all the way. This will only take a few minutes. And I'm going to follow this edge on the inside right there. And I'm going to take my 495. Oh, by the way, that light blue is 661. And put in the center core of the feather. And then the tip down here. The tip is not quite black. It's kind of a smoky color, which is why I'm not using black. And I'm just going to put that in like that. Very simple. And I'm going to start, let's see. I want to get this nice blend with the colors here. And I'm thinking that it's going to be best to do light blue first. So I'm going to kind of sketch this out a little bit. So the light blue kind of starts here and goes all the way down. It's 661 blue. And then on the other side, kind of mirrors it, but does it a little bit less. About like that. And then it has this really nice rich green, but I'm going to start with the 015 green and come here and do the feather that's right in the back. So I'm just doing the back feather first. And then now I'm going to do a light layer on the front feather with this green. And work right through the blue a little bit, but not all the way. And I'm doing it in the direction of the texture of the feather, as you can see here. So from the spine, it's going out like this, and then out in the opposite direction on the other side. Let's see here, I want to bring in some brighter green. So I'm going to use a bit of this 220. And I'm going to do the Same thing on the back feather here. And I'm gonna make that edge nice and sharp, separating the two feathers. And now I'm going to add in the texture, this bright green. And I'm going to come down around here and go darker. There we go. And I'm just building up this texture so that when I blend out, I'm still left with some of it. It's kind of like doing hair. It's all about the direction of the pencil. Let's see, put some of this green in this dark gray down here so it's not so flat looking. And let's see. I think I'm going to go with a tiny bit of the 240 and just add some bright yellow in there so that when it mixes it has some diversity. And then the 660 blue, the dark blue, come down here, add some blue into the end. Again, taking note of the texture, direction of the pencil on either side of the spine. The spine of the feather, not the bird. Alright, I think it's safe to blend out from here. Might need to add another layer or two of the color, but for the most part, it should cover the paper. And just like the pencil stroke, the brush stroke is equally as important, so I'm following the direction of the feather. Yeah, it looks like I might need some of that darker green. Bit of blue too. Turn it more turquoise. So that's what I'll focus on in the next layer. $50? Good God, that's hot. What is 50 degrees in Fahrenheit? Wait, you have to be talking about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Not Celsius, because that would be like melting hot. In that case, it's super cold. It's been really cold here in Poland, like insanely cold. I'm actually had to cover up just a live stream because it's even cold inside. Yeah, I think I've only ever flown through Texas, Steve. I think I just dropped off to, for a connecting flight one time through Houston. But yeah, there was plenty of AC in the airport, so I never got to feel the real heat of Texas. But I imagine it's pretty warm there. Now that I think about it, I've never actually been to the south of the United States. Oh, is that so, Camilla? I had never, yeah, I never went through the trouble of getting a heat gun to try with the blending of pencils, but I have come across the technique a couple times. In can you maybe explain a little bit how using a heat gun helps the blending process of the pencils? Does it help you when you're already using solvent to blend? All right, time to darken up the green. Use a bit more of the 220. Take care, Steve. Have a nice day. Glad you're able to make it to the stream. Alright, switching back to the blue now. This is the 660. And now to tone down the color a bit, I'm going to use 093, where the feather turns a little bit darkish gray. I'm going to try this color and then consider using a darker gray, but I might not have to. Maybe even black a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to use a bit of the 495. And a touch of black, wherever that pencil's at. There we go. Now we have a little bit more obvious separation there. And then just at the tip of the tail feathers, add just a touch of black there. And I think this might be the final blending of the tail feathers. And our bird will be complete. Our Rosella. Just about finished. I have to go now, need some sleep. Alright, Chrissy. Yeah, I know it's getting late there in Australia. I'm imagine a few of you probably going to jump off here rather soon. I appreciate you guys coming by and hanging out. You know, I love it when you guys come over and chat about all kinds of interesting topics. It's always a pleasure having you guys. Just about done here. Finish off the blending of the feather in the back, and yeah, that's good. I like the light coming through the edges. It's a little bit different than the reference photo, but I like that. I like the difference. So peel up the tape on the corners holding the paper in place, and then I can zoom out and show you guys the finished bird. So there is our Rosella bird. First time I ever colored a Rosella. But I'm super happy with the way that it came out. I think that it looks nice and bright and colorful. If you guys have any final questions, just go ahead and ask me before I sign off. Can those color pencil drawings melt in heat and colors meld together? Not really sure. It would probably have to be pretty hot to do that. Christy told me she turned heat gun up until lights flickered. I've blended with brush only, no solvent. Oh, okay. I see what you mean. So you heat up the colored pencils and then you can actually blend them with a brush because they're just melted. Interesting. Awesome. Love it. Can't wait to try it myself. Well, I'd love to see your version, Danny, so be sure to tag me in it when you post it. You too, Jamie. So, thank you. I'm glad that you guys liked the way that it came out. You're shocked at how fast I did it? I guess I'm kind of surprised at how fast I did it too. Though it felt like it took forever simply because I was having so much fun with you guys in the chat. Oh, thank you, Brenda. Yes, I hope to have a safe and enjoyable trip. I have to go through Germany, and I know some of you know my history of going through Germany, so hopefully everything's good there. Hopefully I don't get arrested this time. Anyway, that is going to be it for today, and that's going to be it for a couple weeks now. When I come back from my trip, I'll be sure to do another live stream to hang out with everybody, let you know how my trip went, and then also I'll be putting the finishing touches on my colored pencil portrait course, and then I will share a video announcing the availability of that course, and you'll be able to buy it off my website. One thing that I don't yet know about the course is how much it's going to cost. I've been kind of talking to my wife about it because I don't know how much to make it for. I want it to be available to as many people as possible, but I also would love to upgrade my sound and studio equipment a little bit, and so that course would help me do that, hopefully. And so I haven't quite figured out how much it's going to cost, but I promise to make it reasonable. And yeah, so with that said, I hope you all have a lovely next 2 weeks wherever you're at, and I'll certainly miss you all, but before you know it, I'll be back. So take care, and I will see you next time. Peace.